So correct, things are only going to get worse for women. And no, we have never come together as a class of people. And if you're a white woman wondering why, I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to walk over to the mirror together. And we're going to take a good long look in that mirror right now. Well, let's get comfortable and talk about why women don't actually support other women. Truthfully, what a lot of white women want more than freedom is just patriarchy light. Patriarchy with the men removed so that they can be at the top for once. Like, right? Wouldn't that be nice? And this is really what Taylor Swift gets called out a lot on, because this is basically how she views feminism. She uses it to protect herself and she uses it to bolster her own standing as like a feminist. It's kind of like those men that always are telling you like, I'm such a feminist and like I protect women. That is until their status is threatened, or until it's time to give up their spot, or even just their opinion, or even just like defer to a woman for once, and they just won't do it. Basically, that's what a lot of white women want. They essentially want things to stay the same. They just want to remove the men from the top, and they want to be the next thing on the top. And they're like, don't worry, guys, like everyone down there, I'll tell you what to do, and I'll represent us all. When it comes time for them to be called out the way that they always wanted to call men out, they have no problem using that power to squash any dissent, if you will. And all of these things are patriarchal. When Nicki Minaj called out that only like skinny white women get nominated for Video of the Year, and then Taylor Swift, instead of using her platform to illuminate that issue and to agree with Nicki because she was objectively right, like objectively right. You lose nothing by agreeing with her because she's objectively right. What instead Taylor Swift did was take it as a personal attack. And this is exactly how feminist men act, right? When they are called out, it's like, well, it's like, why are you calling me out? Like, I've done nothing but good, and like blah, blah, blah. And people are like, oh, I thought we were friends. Like, I was actually coming to you like I have a problem, and you're taking it as a personal attack. Like, no, I'm sorry. I thought you were a feminist. Like, I thought you wanted to help other women, but you're just actually taking things as a personal attack. And you're acting like this is patriarchy light, and you're acting like there's a pecking order, and you're acting like I didn't come to you as like peer and as an equal, that I came to you as someone who's like trying to knock you down from a position of power. Like, no, I came to you on equal standing. I came to you and I tried to reason with you and be like, wow, don't you see what's happening? And you were like, why are you attacking me personally? And that's what a lot of white women do when they are called out by black women. Instead of just acknowledging like, yes, this is a problem, like mobilizing resources or trying to work on a plan to make things better, white women take all of these things as a personal attack. Like, they take conversations about intersectionality as a personal attack. Like, it's crazy that they will still fail to see that coming into a black woman's comments saying, I don't like being painted with a broad stroke brush as a white woman, is exactly the same fucking thing as a man saying, well, it's not all men, and I don't do that. First of all, if you feel attacked by that statement, think about what you would say to a man who was attacked by a woman saying men this and men that. If you feel attacked by somebody saying white women this, white women that, then you're part of the problem. And that's okay. The fact that you feel attacked, like, that means you got to look at something. That means it's calling you out. As we used to say in church speak, like, the Holy Spirit's calling you out. It's not the person that's talking. That's you. That's your conscious calling you out. That's the Spirit talking. Okay, that's not you being like rightfully defensive. That's your conscious. That's your conscious talking. So just listen to it. It's okay. Think of what you would want a man to do in that situation if he was being called out for his, like, the negative consequences of his actions, and just do that. Learn and do better. Apologize. Educate other people that look like you. It's not hard. It seems hard because you think that you would be losing something. But the point is, we don't want to live in a fucking patriarchy anymore. What would you be losing by admitting that other people suffer too? You know, what would you be losing by eliminating the problem at its root and not just keep pulling up the weeds? Like, everybody knows that weeds will grow back unless you pull it out with the root. And the root of everything is hierarchy in any way. Like, there's so many things that prevent women from coming together because there's like several hierarchies happening on top of us, right? There's racism, classism, sexism, ableism. And the root of it all is hierarchy and a lack mindset. Like, this idea that somebody can take your spot from you or like your things from you. That's how we got a bunch of men in power that are all obsessed with world domination, and we're all like victims of it right now, is because we keep relying on a hierarchy. We keep relying on leadership and structure and all of this stuff. And we as women can very clearly see where men are doing it to us, but we can't see where we're doing it to other women. You can't see where you're doing the same thing to disabled women, to black women, to poor women, who feel as though you're losing your spot in some kind of a hierarchy, and that scares you. What should scare you is that as long as there is a hierarchy, as long as there's a perceived hierarchy that you are afraid of losing your spot in, the abuse will continue. The patriarchy has still won, then racism has still won, then ableism has still won. Because as long as there is some kind of a pecking order, or as long as there's some kind of a threat based on the possibility of a pecking order existing, we are still performing the patriarchy. We are still performing exactly what we want to be rid of. What it takes to actually subvert it, you guys are never going to believe it, is subversion. You have to subvert everything, including your own status as a white woman in whatever this little fucked up hierarchy is. You have to subvert it, and you have to get underneath and lift up the people that are being oppressed by the structure. Because until you do that, and as long as you are only focused on lifting up yourself and people that you don't perceive as a threat to you, and you are still living in a hierarchy, which is the problem. The hierarchy is the problem. It's very clear to white women when they look up that there's a problem, right? When they look up, they understand the problem. When they look down, they don't understand the problem. They think that that's how it should be. That's what's not okay. That's what's not okay. And it's because of that that you take these things as a personal attack. It's because of that that you take call outs or Black women and women of color just talking about the things that they experience on a regular basis as a personal attack. Because it's true. Because it's true. You just wanted them to stay quiet about that. That was supposed to be everybody's little secret. But that's how men treat you. They want to help themselves by helping you, as long as helping you is convenient for them and takes them up another step of the ladder. As soon as it's not, guess what they do? They turn their back on you. They kick you off the ladder if need be. If you ever so much as become a hindrance or, God forbid, take over on the ladder, I mean, they'll rip you from that thing and throw you right back from whence you came. Because you were never supposed to be more successful than the man who was feministically helping you navigate the patriarchy. He never wanted to subvert the patriarchy. He wanted you to navigate it with him in a way that benefited him. Now, replace him with you. If you're a white woman, replace the man in that scenario with you and a Black woman. That's what's happening. That's why Black women were saying, I would rather be stuck in the woods with a bear than a white woman. And then, of course, it was cue the white woman tears. And if you're ever wondering why that is such a common turn of phrase, white woman tears, is because that's how white women navigate the patriarchy. And Black women have figured this out. Black women don't get to cry to get their way. They don't get to cry to get what they want. And so when white women do that, that's not an act of solidarity. That's actually a perpetuation of the patriarchy. White women cry about being called out whenever white women, use their tears to absolve themselves from consequences and absolve themselves from even like feeling bad about what they've done. That's what that is. And you'll notice that similarly to men's rights activists, a lot of white women tears only come in response to them being called out on racism and them being called out on inappropriate behavior. Why are you crying? Be better. Nobody's trying to kill you. They're trying to make you better. If you can understand having this kind of an attitude towards men, then you need to be able to understand it intersectionally. Otherwise, we're never getting out of the patriarchy alive. You need to understand your own life is at stake, because every time that you use white woman tears or some other version of that, or you slander a Black woman, or you take things as a personal attack, or you act like you're the one being thrown under the bus in the situation for trying to help, every time you do that, you make sure that the patriarchy stays intact. Yes, you're looking up. Yes, you're seeing the problems, but you are not going to climb to the top of that thing as a woman and ever rule it. That's not in the fucking cards. You need to understand that first and foremost. Okay, when we play this whole patriarchy game, and we want to compete with the men and we want to take over in their spots and make it better, all of that is you ensuring that the patriarchy exists tomorrow. Every time you try to play into it and outplay the men at their own game, it's their own game. It's right there in the sense. It's their game. It's their game. The winner can only be a man. If you view other women's concerns, issues, and if you view intersectionality as something that is trying to drag you down and prevent you from reaching the top of the patriarchy, you've already lost as a feminist, because as a feminist, you're not supposed to reach the top of the patriarchy. And what are you going to do from there? From the top of the patriarchy? How does that help any of us? It doesn't. We would be living in the year 3024 right now if instead of feeling personally attacked and instead of feeling like Nicki Minaj was trying to take something away from her and causing a huge public thing with it, having her fans come after Nicki, all this stuff, if instead of doing that, she would have just tagged the VMAs in Nicki's tweet and said, explain. One word to unite women. You want to use your white woman privilege for good? That's what you should be doing. Otherwise, you're not a feminist. When you take other women's bad experiences with the patriarchy as a personal attack, you are part of the problem. You are part of the patriarchy. And part of that is because you wrongfully think that you represent all women and all of women's struggles, when in reality, white women like me know nothing about that. We know nothing about the struggles of Black women and women of color in general. When you say well, I'm a woman and you guys are trying to take me down and all this stuff, you're not doing the thing that you think you're doing. You're actually absolving yourself of problems that you could realistically and legitimately help to solve. The only reason that Taylor Swift didn't call out the VMAs was because they were going to give her an award. And awards are very important in a hierarchical structure, like the patriarchy. That's why Taylor Swift works so hard to keep her songs charting and trending and all that stuff at the expense of other artists, at the expense of other younger female artists. You know why? Because her feminism only extends to herself and people that don't threaten her standing in the patriarchal structure. So her feminism is quite literally not real, because feminism would never allow the patriarchy to win. And a true feminist would never be interested in climbing the ladder of the patriarchy so that they could sit up at the top and giggle and kick their feet up with all the men up there. Because what you're doing as a woman in that case is you're playing king of the hill with the men. They will never accept you at the top of that hill. You need to understand that. Woman CEO, billionaire, whatever, it doesn't matter. They'll be like, well, her tits are saggy. And boom, you're done. You're done. If you are trying to climb the patriarchal structure as a woman, it shows. It's going to show every time. We can see you. We can see you. And it's always these women that are going to be like, well, why are you coming after me? I didn't do anything. And blah, blah, blah. You sound like a man. You sound like the men. You sound like the men in my comments that are not all men. And, oh, I would never do that. And all of your solidarity is fake. How do you not see that ripping off women, squashing other women in the charts is not the way to be a feminist? They're actually fucking crazy. If you think that you getting to the top of The patriarchy pyramid is going to solve any problems for anybody but you. And it won't even solve your problems. This is a general white woman problem. They're always feminist until they get called out, because they're not interested, once again, they're not interested in actually subverting the structure. They're interested in removing the men from it and still playing around in that same structure. Well, that's never going to happen. And so, yeah, while we're all here looking in the mirror, let's ask ourselves, what do you want? Do you actually want the patriarchy to no longer exist? Do you actually not want to be oppressed by the patriarchy any longer? Or would you be fine with the patriarchy if men didn't have access to it? If there was no more glass ceiling, would you be okay with the patriarchy then? That's going to really help explain and make it very clear of like what you're actually after. And that's good for you to know, because we need to know if we can actually come together as women. We need to know. We need to know who's on board and who's not, because subverting the patriarchy is not the same as women getting to the top of the patriarchy. You understand the patriarchy is inherently a hierarchical structure. So whenever we talk about somebody getting to the top of it, like this is why boss babe feminism was very dangerous. Anytime you're trying to climb a hierarchical structure, you have to climb over other people. You have to leave other people behind so that they can support the structure that you want to sit on top of. I don't want no part in playing king of the hill with the men in their stupid little structure. That shit is stupid. It's stupid and it always hurts people. And I don't want to do it. So we have to like imagine, we have to use our imaginations, okay, and figure out a way forward. Because as long as we are all climbing over each other to try and like beat the men at their own game, everybody loses. All of us lose. All the women lose. Because anytime you're a girl's girl until the girl's prettier than you, you're giving the men power to rank women by looks. Anytime that you're a girl's girl until a girl's more successful than you, you're giving power to a structure that men invented, because you are worshiping success, letting it prevent and distract you from your actual goal, which is to support women. Because when you're trying to fit into the patriarchy, you end up hurting women the same way that men hurt you, because that's the only way to play their game. So please stop playing their game and let's actually come together for once. I'm fucking tired. I don't want to live in the world that Taylor Swift is trying to create. She's trying to boss babe her way to the top. And that's not going to help a single one of us meaningfully. That's what I don't want. And I don't want other white women looking at that thinking that that's okay. It is such a good idea to defer to Black women on things, especially things like feminism and things like how we should move forward with a feminist mindset. When you look at intersectionality, you also have to remember the person with the most intersectionality has all the bases covered. If you come to a Black woman and you say, hey, a man is harassing me, she's gonna believe you. If you had to come to a Black woman and say, hey, I think I'm experiencing racism, she would be like, this is something that I've experienced, so I can help you navigate this, right? Whereas you come to a white woman with, I think I may be experiencing racism, and she's gonna say, oh, well, probably not, because that's her reality. So you should be deferred to because you understand everybody's problems like unilaterally, because you've had that experience. But the truth is, like, the more intersectionality somebody has, the more they're actually keen to everybody's problems. What's the one thing we see over and over again with white men is that they can't see anybody else's problems but their own. Like, people's pain doesn't matter to them until they have to experience it. And they won't ever experience a lot of what the rest of us experience on a daily basis. Like, do you see what I'm saying? So when you defer to a Black woman, what she's going to have is a more comprehensive experience and understanding of the world than does a white woman. That's why it's very important to think about intersectionality and those intersections of poverty, those intersections of race, intersections of gender, intersections of ableism. More of those experiences that a person has had, the more sympathetic they'll actually be across the board to everybody else's experience. That's why, like, logically, CRT works. It works because people really only live off of their own based experience. It's hard for them to identify things that haven't happened to them because they don't fundamentally understand them. I will have tagged a lot of creators in this video that I follow that I definitely think you should follow, because they have that very comprehensive perspective that we should be listening to a lot more than voices like mine, right? Like, I'm not saying my voice is not important. I'm saying it doesn't cover all the bases of the problems that women that I care about, whose freedom and equality I care about, experience. That's why we should all be listening to the voices of people who are actually the most oppressed in our system. They see it more clearly than any of us ever will. Please go follow them and please listen. Godspeed.